This is TSN Online, and I'm Natalia Ostrovska. Subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave a comment. It's very important to us. Let's get started. Iran's supreme leader has threatened the United States with irreparable damage in case of interference. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's statement to the people was broadcast on state television. In his address, Iran's leader promised a decisive response to Washington if they dare to engage in military action on Israel's side. The spiritual leader also stated that Iranians are not the kind to give up and called on officials to continue their work, quoting, "with strength and faith in God." Khamenei may currently be in a vulnerable position, as in recent days the Israeli army has eliminated several of his associates, military personnel and officials. And the current statement has effectively become a response to US President Donald Trump's calls for Tehran's unconditional surrender. The politician even stated that he knows Ali Khamenei's whereabouts, but for now they are not planning to kill him. So it became known the day before that Trump held a meeting at the White House with the US National Security Council where they discussed whether to join the strikes on Iran, in particular to destroy the underground uranium enrichment plant in Fordo, since the IDF does not have the appropriate weaponry. According to CBS, there is no complete consensus among his closest advisors on this issue. However, the Western press reports that the aircraft carrier Nimitz has already been deployed to the Middle East, and it can carry 5,000 personnel and more than 60 aircraft, including fighter jets. Due to the heavy shelling, the president of Ukraine has shortened his visit to Canada and is returning to Kyiv. This was reported by the Canadian broadcaster CBC, citing its own sources. As a result of the meeting in the Group of Seven plus Ukraine format, additional sanctions were imposed by Canada and the United Kingdom. Neither the expected joint sanctions nor even a unified statement could be achieved. Our correspondent in the United States, Olha Koshelenko, will continue.
The president of Ukraine arrived at the G7 summit when the American leader had already left Kananaskis. Aboard the presidential plane, Donald Trump said that he had done everything he planned at the summit, and also that he had not heard about the shelling of peaceful Ukrainian cities, which was happening at that very time. Incidentally, he did not respond later either, on Tuesday. At the State Department, the Russian strikes were condemned in a restrained manner.
We condemn these strikes and express our deepest condolences to the victims and the families of all those affected. The president has recently spoken clearly regarding strikes on civilian areas in this context.
Volodymyr Zelensky received words of support and sympathy from other Western leaders who gathered for the special session, A Strong and Sovereign Ukraine. The United Kingdom and Canada have announced new restrictions against individuals and companies that help Russia circumvent sanctions, as well as against vessels of the Shadow Fleet. Canada also announced military assistance to Ukraine.
We are providing additional military aid, drones, helicopters and other weaponry worth $2 billion directly to Ukraine. And we are also transferring a new tranche from frozen Russian assets, also amounting to $2 billion.
The figures mentioned by the Prime Minister are in Canadian dollars. In US dollars, the amounts are somewhat lower. The G7 leaders did not manage to secure any aid for Ukraine from America, at least not in terms of sanctions. The day before, during lunch, Trump told them that sanctions against any country are too expensive for the United States. However, Trump did not leave the discussions, with Zelensky completely unsupervised. He left Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in his place. The Wall Street Journal writes that it was precisely because of the United States' position that a joint statement on Ukraine could not be issued. Washington insisted on vague wording. As a result, they abandoned the statement altogether. Details of the summit. Canada sought to agree on a joint statement regarding the war in Ukraine, which would include strong language against Russia's invasion, according to Canadian and European officials. The G7 leaders did not want to water down the wording, so Carney will include a significant portion of this statement in his own statement as chair, which will be published at the end of the summit. European leaders, however, are trying not to lose contact with Trump. German Chancellor Merz wrote on X that he's cautiously optimistic about the introduction of sanctions against Russia. French President Macron is determined to increase pressure on the Kremlin. During a closed-door conversation, Zelensky stated, "Diplomacy is in crisis, but we cannot stop."
And together we must continue to urge President Trump to use his real influence to force Putin to put an end to this war. It was the United States and President Trump who proposed a ceasefire, the resumption of diplomacy, immediate meetings and negotiations.
Next week, the leaders of NATO countries, including Donald Trump, will gather in The Hague for the Alliance Summit. Zelensky has also been invited there, despite opposition from the United States. This is another opportunity for a joint meeting. Olya Koshelenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
If you don't help Ukraine, then it's time to start learning Russian. With an emotional speech before the European Parliament, the head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, took the floor. The official dedicated her speech to the fact that Russia already poses a direct threat to the entire European Union. She called for providing more assistance to Ukraine, as well as for the sake of our own security. After all, the stronger Ukraine is on the battlefield today, the stronger it will be at the negotiating table when Russia is finally ready to talk. Kaja Kallas also reminded about the numerous hybrid attacks that the Kremlin is carrying out against EU countries. For example, Moscow has repeatedly violated airspace, conducted military exercises near the EU borders, attacked infrastructure, and recruited criminals for sabotage. Therefore, the head of European diplomacy is calling on member states to adopt the new NATO defense spending target of 5% of GDP as soon as possible.
Russia is already a direct threat to the European Union. Last year, they spent more on defense than all EU countries combined. This year, they are spending more on defense than on global healthcare and social policy combined. This is a long-term plan for sustained aggression. Such military expenditures are impossible without the intention to use the army.
Let's give a like to such unequivocal reactions from world leaders to Russian crimes. Everyone could use that kind of confidence. You are watching TSN. Please leave your comments. This is important for the further creation of our episodes. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the TSN online channel so you don't miss the next episodes. An ash column reaching up to 11 kilometers. In Indonesia, the Lewotowilaki volcano has erupted. The highest alert level has been declared in the surrounding region. The evacuation zone for local residents has been expanded to 8 kilometers. Molten lava is actively erupting from the crater, billowing clouds of smoke. The height of the emissions is comparable to a multi-story building. The dust has covered the sky so much that even the sun is no longer visible. Ash is settling like a carpet on local roads and the roofs of houses. Authorities strongly advise residents and tourists to avoid the area near the crater. In addition, dozens of flights to Bali have already had to be cancelled. Experts warn that due to the rains, there is a risk of so-called lahars forming. These are mud flows that occur when volcanic material mixes with water and are extremely destructive. They can flow at speeds of dozens of meters per second and are capable of destroying any structures in their path. And this is not the first time Lewotowilaki has awakened. Last November, 9 people died as a result of its eruption. 16,000 had to leave their homes. The local monastery was destroyed by the emissions. Kyiv is in mourning. Dozens dead, more than 100 injured. For a whole day now, debris has been cleared in a 9-story building in the Solomiansky district of the capital. A ballistic missile destroyed an entire entrance there. Rescuers continue to find the bodies of the deceased. Among the dead is 31-year-old Dmytro Isayenko. A photo of his parents has spread around the world. Meanwhile, in a high-rise building in the Darnitsky district, residents are also recovering from what they've experienced. A Shahed drone struck directly into the apartments. Yulia Kirienko and Irina Kondrachuk visited the impact sites. Let's watch.
The clearing of the rubble from the destroyed entrance of the 9-story building on Vidradny is ongoing. They have managed to clear everything down to the basement, where all the floors collapsed. 21 people died here. Rescuers recovered 11 bodies yesterday and another 10 since this morning. They were no longer searching for survivors here. Among the dead, there are some who have not been identified. Today, the bodies of 8 more victims were unearthed. The last 2 are women from the same family. Now they are currently clearing out the basement, the area where all the floors of one entrance severely collapsed.
I live in this building, and there was a woman who worked as a cook in this entire entrance. She lived on the 2nd floor, and I don't know if she's alive or not. My grandson lived there, and my son-in-law too. Well, now I'm trying to find out already.
In the courtyard of the high-rise where an entire entrance collapsed because of a Russian missile, 2 more 5-story buildings were damaged. They are located literally just a few meters from the high-rise. As you can see, the debris is already being cleared. People are boarding up the damaged windows with chipboard. Absolutely every apartment here has been affected. There are injured people. Nevertheless, they now have access to their homes, are trying to clear out the construction debris, and utility workers are helping them with this. Some of the local residents spent the last night in their destroyed homes. There are no intact apartments in this building. Is that correct? The one...
I don't want to give false information, but it seems to me that there are some intact apartments. Windows blown out.
Dozens of apartments in 3 buildings were damaged. The state emergency service workers have already brought in cranes and gone up to the upper floors of the neighboring still intact entrance next to the destroyed one in order to clear construction debris and dismantle balconies that were mangled by the blast wave. And now we can see how people who have regained access to their apartments are already collecting whatever belongings survived starting this morning.
I used to live here, but...
Are you helping someone?
Yes. My friend and brother's apartment was also broken into. There's nothing good left. It's a complete disaster.
Right next to the site of the Russian attack and the 3 damaged buildings, there's a large headquarters operating to help local residents. Here you can have a hot cup of coffee or eat something warm because the buildings still have no gas supply. People can't cook food for themselves. Electricity was restored only the day before. There is only water. You can also get psychological and medical assistance here. Medical staff are on duty here. And people are still coming to Kyiv even a day after the attack. People still need psychological and medical help. Nearby, the police and investigators are working, taking statements about the destruction. And likewise, people can apply for e-renovation and for a one-time payment for those homes that have been damaged. One important detail, in the building in Solomiansky district, where the entrance collapsed and the entire building was affected, there is an official shelter in the first entrance, with even a sign indicating that people can hide here from a Russian attack. And eyewitnesses say that nearly 100 people stayed here throughout the night. Because people from neighboring houses gathered here, this shelter withstood the attack.
My ears were ringing, children were screaming, crying. There were probably up to 100 people in that shelter. The lights went out. Darkness, children crying, everyone screaming. It was such a nightmare.
Fresh flowers are already being brought to the site of the Russian attack where people were killed. Here is one of the bouquets on the playground next to the building where a Russian missile destroyed an entire entrance. This was one of the largest attacks by the Russian Federation on Ukraine and on Kyiv in the past year. We are in the Darnitsky district, better known as the residential neighborhood Poznyaki. Right now we are in one of the apartment buildings that was struck by a Russian drone. We are in an apartment on the 14th floor where a Russian Shahed hit at dawn. And right now, at this very moment, you can clearly see the exact moment of impact, and the strike hit the load-bearing wall directly with significant force. You can also see how the steel rebar inside the wall is bent and twisted. And what's especially important to note is that at the time of the strike, there were people present in this apartment, the owners, who were a married couple as well as their 13-year-old son, all of whom were inside at that very moment. The son survived the most because at that moment he was hiding in the bedroom. His parents had sent him there while they themselves were in...
Actually, sorry, to clarify, the son was hiding in the bathroom, and at that moment the parents were in their bedroom. In fact, that's what their neighbor told us. Let's hear more from her directly.
They were already tired, they were already in the bedroom, and, well, just the son. Yes, I sent him there so he would be there. It's safer there. And in moments like that, they would say, "Listen," said he, "the drone is buzzing," and quickly go to the bedroom, and then that was it. And then they ended up trapped under the rubble.
Fortunately, the couple survived. Both the husband and wife received medical assistance. Now you can see footage of what their bedroom looks like after the Russian Shahed strike, as well as their home overall. They are not here now. Both of them are staying with relatives. At first, the wife was, of course, hospitalized due to shrapnel wounds. She was injured by glass. The man was treated at the scene, but they are now doing well. They are still in a rather shocked state, but with their permission, we are able to show you the aftermath of this attack. They want Ukraine and the world to see what ordinary Kyiv civilians have to go through just for staying in their own homes. It was yet another night, another attack that lasted more than 9 hours. In fact, right now, construction debris is still hanging from their apartment and from other residences. There are pieces of concrete here, remnants of windows, and they could collapse at any moment, falling down to the entrance below. That's why down there, municipal workers have already been working for their second day under this entrance. Let's actually hear from the chief engineer of the building's management company about the scope of the work to be done.
Today will also be a busy day. We will be cleaning up all these remnants. We hope that today the State Emergency Service will come and help us, because we need to remove the mineral wool, the insulation, and we need equipment to load and fill the containers.
In fact, a total of 3 buildings here have been affected. In just this building where we are now, a single blast wave, a single explosion damaged 8 floors and dozens of apartments. Yesterday, throughout the day, people were able to report the consequences, sign up for and get in line for e-restoration, as well as apply for a one-time compensation of 10,000 hryvnias.
Irina Kondrachuk, Yulia Kirienko, Alexander Shuyan, and Ihor Siri, TSN 1+1.
For more than a day now, they have been working side by side with rescuers helping to clear the rubble. K9 teams are working at the impact sites in Kyiv. In these photos, you can see Mria, a Belgian shepherd. According to the state emergency service workers, she inspects the destroyed areas and marks the spots where the search should be focused. And in the video, you can see Ray, Haku, Bajira, and Yava. Together with their handlers, they search for residents of the apartment building under the rubble. Let's watch without commentary.
The dogs worked in these kinds of booties so that glass wouldn't injure their paws. Now they're resting.
In the Kherson region, the Russians killed a power worker who was carrying out repairs and also attacked a fire station in Bilozerka with drones. 3 firefighters were injured. The unit's building and service vehicles were damaged. And at night, in the regional center, the enemy struck an ambulance that had arrived on a call. 2 medics were hospitalized with concussions and injuries. Zaporizhia was attacked by at least 13 drones last night. The enemy targeted civilian and infrastructure facilities. Many businesses, production, and warehouse facilities were destroyed, and fires broke out. An elderly woman and a 15-year-old boy were wounded in Izium. This is in the Kharkiv region. Medical assistance was also needed for a resident of the village of Rybki. The enemy used all types of weaponry in the region. A resident of Mirnorad was killed by the Russians in Donetsk region. 8 more people were wounded in Kostiantinivka, Ocheretain, and Hruske. 1 private house burned down and another was destroyed as a result of FPV drone strikes in the Nikopol district of Dnipropetrovsk region. In Sinelnikov district, there was a fire at a transportation company. The enemy advanced near Yunakivka and Mern in Sumy region, as well as near the village of Zoria in Donbas. This was reported by Deep State. But the hottest spot on the front remains the Pokrovsk direction. The defense forces are holding back the pressure and have already repelled 19 attacks. The occupiers are attempting assaults near Toretsk, Kramatorsk, and Lyman. The General Staff has released the latest frontline reports. In the Kursk and Sumy regions, the Russians attacked nearly 30 times. However, there was no calm on any section of the front. The occupier is trying to push through in the east, north, and south. The armed forces are putting up resistance. Our border guards have shown how they destroy the enemy in the Kramatorsk and Kupiansk sectors, as well as in the area of the Serebryansk forestry. Over the past day, the Russians attacked here nearly 30 times, but did not achieve any success. The occupier is advancing with large forces, but is also suffering heavy losses. Just yesterday, the enemy's losses amounted to 1,040 personnel. Ukrainian soldiers also destroyed 7 tanks, 31 armored fighting vehicles, and 137 vehicles. Moreover, the Russians are trying to shell not only the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, but also peaceful settlements. Enemy FPV drones are reaching 20 to 30, and in some places even 50 kilometers from the front line. The occupiers are expanding the area of influence of their drones, not only to disrupt the logistics of the defense forces at the front, but also to terrorize civilians. At the same time, according to Ukrainian soldiers, the ratio of infantry is 1 to 10 in favor of the invaders. They are trying to break through into the Dnipropetrovsk region. However, the defense forces refute Russian fake news about crossing the administrative border of the regions. Yulia Kirienko has returned from the front with more details.
When you take one down, your eyes light up, and you just want to keep going more, until you've taken them all out. You work very quickly and efficiently. You enjoy it, you smile.
The FPV drone pilot with the call sign Kazyain shares his feelings after an enemy assault. There is plenty of work for his crew because the pilots operate in one of the toughest sectors of the front, the Novopavlivka direction, which borders the Dnipropetrovsk region. In this section of the front, the Russians have significantly reinforced their forces, the soldiers say. They launch massive assaults every day and can attack the same position from different directions several times a day, all in an attempt to break through to the Dnipropetrovsk region. There are significantly more enemy soldiers, the servicemen say. In the area where the 72nd Brigade is stationed, that's 10 enemy infantrymen for every one of ours.
There are so many of them. I don't know how many FPV drones it would take to take them all out.
The intensity of the fighting here is also evident in the number of enemy targets destroyed by our pilots.
Every day it's dozens of infantry vehicles. Some warehouses, small ones, big ones.
And to hold their positions, our troops have to surpass the Russians in quality. In modern real warfare, that's exactly how it is. Those who possess the largest number of FPV drones and any kind of drones will be the ones to win in battle. Because right now the enemy also has far too many of these strike UAVs. And both our logistics and infantry are suffering because of it. The occupiers have partially redeployed their drone unit Rubicon from the Kursk region. According to the defense forces, this is about 36 crews of enemy pilots operating in the Pokrovsk and Novopavlivka directions.
That's quite a lot, enough to at least try to take control of the rear roads and complicate the connection between our troops and the front line.
And they also have plenty of drones for this purpose.
On fiber optic cable spools ranging from 25 to 300 kilometers, that is, even a small one, about 600 grams of payload is enough to burn up a car, a Euro truck or some other equipment. They can just sit somewhere by the roadside just like those waiters. It's a very effective weapon they have.
Right now we are less than 20 kilometers from the front line, so we constantly have to listen to the sounds around us and look up, because it's unclear whether the drone in the sky is ours or one of those Rubicon ones.
Maybe it's just all us flying around practicing.
Ours?
I don't know. God willing, it's ours.
Pilot Vitaly seems to be sneaking his drone between the green leaves and branches, trying to fly as precisely as possible into the homemade training course. At first glance, it seems easy to fly through a small opening at different heights. To achieve such a level of precision flying, the soldier trained for almost a year, ever since he signed the contract and became an FPV pilot in the Black Zaporojians Brigade.
No matter how much a Russian soldier tries to circle around a tree, no matter how hard he tries to run away from it, drones are more maneuverable than a Russian soldier can ever be running, dodging, escaping, so he simply can't get away from a drone at all.
And even though these pilots have destroyed thousands of targets, they don't skip these training sessions in the field, which looks more like a dog training ground, because every time they hit the enemy, it means saving the lives of our infantrymen, since it's the FPV pilots who provide them with cover.
I've already flown a lot of missions. I don't even know how many thousands, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 sorties, something like that. Tanks, well, you know, all sorts of things. There's a lot of infantry here, really a lot. I don't even know how many, but sometimes in one shift there can be 15 hits. Every day there's always a KIA. It's just like that. You stop being afraid. It's like having your morning coffee.
Yulia Kirienko, Volodymyr Paracholsky, Ole Moskali, TSN 1+1.